Welcome to the Tarryn Reeves Show, where your journey to empowerment takes center stage. I'm your host, Tarryn Reeves, best-selling author and publishing expert. Together, we'll dive into the hearts and minds of visionaries, disruptors, and trailblazing leaders to explore the most compelling and thought-provoking ideas in life, business, and marketing. Let's inspire, impact, and ignite. This is the Tarryn Reeves Show. Today, I'm joined by Lilian Sue, who is a PR coach and publicist who is dedicated to helping creative entrepreneurs unlock the hidden strengths within their stories. With a focus on both mindset and strategy, Lilian empowers her clients to overcome limiting beliefs, build confidence, and harness the transformative potential of PR to reach their highest goals. Her one-on-one coaching is deeply rooted in mindset work, inspired by her own journey and the profound impact it has had on her life. Welcome, Lilian.
Thanks for having me, Tarryn. I appreciate it.
It is an absolute pleasure. I'm excited to dive into this world of PR and mindset with you today. We actually have a PR and media department to our publishing company, and I think that PR can be such a powerful thing, not only in business, but for a personal level as well. You mentioned that your work is inspired by your own journey. Can you take us back to the beginning of that? What did that look like?
Sure. Originally, to go back a bit, I started my business in the copywriting and social media strategy sphere. So I was
Okay.
a service provider, a freelance writer. I got into PR and publicity because I had clients that were asking for the service. So I thought, hey, why not see if I can do this, see if I enjoy it. I ended up cutting my teeth working with some agencies in town and fell in love with doing it, honestly. But after a few years, right around the time the pandemic hit, not only did I have a lot of entrepreneurs saying to me, hey, I would love to work with you on a campaign, but I can't afford it. I was also burning
Hmm.
out myself. And I had to take a step back and I had to think, well, God willing, I make it to 65. I don't
Yep.
want to be a service provider for the rest of my life.
Mm.
And in the course of working strictly as a publicist, I noticed a lot of entrepreneurs and clients presenting with a lot of the same limiting beliefs, the fears, the anxieties, the unrealistic expectations surrounding what PR could do for them and their projects or products, and also a lack of education, knowledge around what PR actually was. Would happen would be they would come to myself or the agencies I was working with, and they would say something along the lines of, I'm here because so and so told me I need PR. So they had
Yeah.
no idea what it was, whether they were even in the right spot for it in terms of whether they were actually ready to take on a campaign. So I was thinking there has to be a better way for me to work with entrepreneurs, give them that knowledge and that education, and not turn them away just because they may not be able to afford a campaign. So when
Mm.
I made the choice over 4 years ago to invest in business coaching, I also decided to invest in mindset coaching. And I'm still with the same mindset coach today. And the reason why I decided to do that is because when my business coach suggested, well, why not try PR coaching? She said, I bet you anything that's something that a lot of people in your industry aren't doing. And she was right about that. My industry is primarily the agency campaign model. You have
Mm.
account managers that manage your clients and do the campaigns on their behalf. But I thought, well, if I'm going to be a coach and I'm going to address with my clients the fears, the anxieties, and the mindset blocks they have about getting out there, then I need to take a step back and have a conversation with myself about where are my fears coming? What's holding me
Mm.
back from moving forward? And from working with my mindset coach, we do a lot of modalities like the meditation, the self-hypnosis, and EFT, the tapping. And
Yeah.
what that allowed me to find out about myself is that A, my anxiety was driving the bus. I had lived with a chronic illness for 6 years by that point, and it took me that long to realize that, hey, it's actually my anxiety that's causing my chronic illness flare ups. That was a
Mm.
revelation. And then I dug deeper and I went, okay, well, where's this anxiety and this fear coming from? It wasn't just about a fear of being judged. It wasn't just a fear of being rejected. It was this fear of losing control of my own narrative and who I am as a person if I chose to put it out there. And through that mindset work, I recognized that, oh, this actually came about. My need for control, this obsessive need for control actually came about because as a child, I had no control. I was being controlled. And it wasn't until I had that breakthrough EFT session where I learned how to let go of that burden because I recognized that and accepted that as a child, I did the best that I could to protect myself. And I forgave myself for not being able to do more. And because I was able to do that, the proverbial monkey just fell off my back. All this weight
Yeah.
came off my chest. My anxiety was so low for the first time in decades. I could actually sleep through the night. And it was because I recognized that, hey, I don't need to have this iron grip control over my business in order to be successful, in order to make a positive impact with my clients, and in order to find joy. I can build my business and engage with the people that resonate with what I'm saying rather than worrying about what everyone else is thinking. And it was because of this mindset work that I feel like I've been able to develop that unique understanding with where my clients are coming, where their fears and
Mm.
their anxieties are coming from when it comes to getting out there, sharing their stories on platforms like podcasts, and building these relationships with the media that's going to get them in front of the right audiences.
So let's hop back a few because this is obviously very, very deep work. For those who are listening and don't know, what is PR?
PR or public relations is the most cost effective way as a strategic communications process for entrepreneurs and brands to forge relationships with the media and build trust with the audience.
Mm.
So basically, what PR allows you to do that you can't do through social media or online advertising or email is to share your story with audiences that aren't your own by leveraging the relationships you build with the media to get access to their audiences. And the reason why you want to do that is because by being featured on these platforms, what you're building is third party credibility. These media outlets are telling their audiences, we are featuring this person because their story will make a positive impact on you. You could stand to learn something. This will change your life. This will get you thinking about doing business a different way, whatever it is. And because these audiences trust these platforms, they listen to them daily, they watch them, they read them, however it is that they consume that media. Then they go, oh, because this person is being featured on here, maybe I should listen to their episode. Maybe I should read that article. Maybe I should watch that video. And gradually from that, then they will go to pick up your book. They'll go to follow you. They'll sign up for your newsletter and eventually they'll buy from you and recommend you to their networks.
Mm. So, what are some of the common fears that you see entrepreneurs presenting with when they show up to do and say, "Oh, so and so says I need PR," and then you go through the process and you're like, "Well, there's so many underlying fears here." What are some common ones?
Probably some of the biggest fears, and what's really interesting is that I find that this presents a lot more with my female entrepreneur clients than their male counterparts, are things like fear around being judged or rejected,
Mhm.
anxiety around wasting time, energy, and money are really big ones. Imposter syndrome is really big because they've been conditioned to believe that, hey, because I don't have a degree in this, or maybe I haven't worked in this field for 30 or 40 years, I'm not an expert. My perspective doesn't matter. Therefore, why do I have to share? Why do I have to talk about it? There is this innate fear of getting introspective and sharing more of their stories because they believe that whatever it is that I'm putting out there, whether it's a product, a book, a new service, that can do the talking for me, right? That shows people the results that I can generate if they are a service provider or a coach or what have you. Why do I have to come out and share my story? And what I say to them is that at the end of the day, unfortunately, you're not the only entrepreneur out there that does what you do. There
Yep.
are, at any given time, thousands of you in every region, every city, every country. So people at the end of the day buy from people. They trust
Mm.
people and they will support people over a corporate logo. And in order for
Yeah.
you to really get out there and show them this is what makes me different. Your product, your book, whatever it is, that's just the vehicle for them to get to know you better, right? It's your story that's going to show them why your journey as an entrepreneur is unique and why what you're doing is worth celebrating. Particularly
Mm.
in the realm of books, as you mentioned, being a publisher, every audience member out there today has limited time, energy, and funds. There's thousands of books in every single genre, whether it's fiction or nonfiction or what have you. And quite frankly, none of us have enough time or energy to read them all. And in the case of the author or the entrepreneur, it's impossible for us to reach every single one of our customers one on one. So when you launch a PR campaign, you have to change your perspective a little bit. And instead of focusing on, oh, it doesn't feel good because it feels like I'm selling to strangers. Actually, what it is you are sharing your story with your community. And I say that
Mm.
because I said every time you go to reach out to a podcaster, reach out to a reviewer, you have common ground based on that subject matter that you're both passionate about. And because of that, you are both part of the same community. So if you look at it
Mhm.
that way, all you're doing is sharing your story with members of your community so they can get out there and help you to continue to grow your audience and expand the reach of your story.
That's a beautiful way of looking at it and can then really park those imposter syndromes and those anxiety fears and control. It's really you're showing up in service. You're not like cold selling to a cold audience. Those people are already interested in whatever it is that you're talking about. And you're just going, well, here's my story. I hope it changes your life.
Absolutely, because everyone wants to know. I have this fantastic example with the gentleman I was being interviewed on his podcast once. And he said to me, we had a speakers event, and there was a guy there that would open every talk that he gave with, I own 5 Ferraris. So at one point, he had to pull the gentleman aside and go, you know what? That's great, but none of us really care. What we want to know is, how did you get to that point? And as it turns out, the gentleman got to that point after previously having been homeless and spent years living out of his car. So that's why he
That's
said, if you had led with, hey, I used to be homeless instead, and this is where I got to, that's a lot more impactful for people because then they can actually relate to, hey, this guy's just like me. He's been through adversity, he's come out the other side, and he's grown. But if you lead with just the vanity statement of this is how much money I have, this is what I own or how much I own, that's going to turn people off because they can't relate to that. There's nothing for them to grab onto.
Yeah, 100%. So I'm curious now. You're a PR coach, and you mentioned before that you became a little bit disillusioned with people showing up during the COVID pandemic saying, I need PR, but I can't afford a campaign. And you did a pivot in your business journey then, from what I can gather. Can you explain a bit more how a PR coach is different than going to a PR agency?
Sure, absolutely. The PR agency model and what I call the campaign model
Hmm.
essentially is a client comes to you with a few goals that they have for a campaign. You and your team work to pull that campaign together. So you develop all of the assets and then you send out the story pitches on the client's behalf. And then you are the one that's managing the conversations with the media, you're scheduling interviews, you're booking events, whatever the client's goals were to help drive awareness of their business. But bottom line is the agency and the publicists within that agency are the ones doing the work. As a PR coach, oh, and I should mention that at the end of the campaign, the client doesn't get anything extra beyond the results, right? They just, whatever momentum came from the campaign, that is what it is. And then the relationship. So, as a
Yeah.
PR coach, what I do that's different is I guide my clients. I work with my clients one on one to give them that personalized support, guidance, and clarity on things like we work primarily to help them build a strong mindset. We work together to do that. And I work with them to develop the strategy to launch a successful PR campaign. So, together, through one-on-one coaching sessions, I'm working with them to discover things like where's the fear and anxiety coming from? What are the root causes of that? How can we address that in ways that's going to help you push past that and build healthy coping mechanisms so the next time you feel anxious, it's not going to stop you in your tracks. Then we go
Mm.
into with the strategy. What are your goals? What's your ultimate focus? Do you have ideas on things like where your audience is spending their time? We brainstorm on that part of it before I work. I give them the templates, the resources, and the tools on, okay, this is what a media kit is. This is how you build. This is why you need a media pitch in terms of what you want to tell people. This is how we're going to workshop it together. And with the media list, this is the big difference too, is that on the agency model, you will never see a publicist or a PR firm give their clients their media list
Correct.
because it's your bread and butter. You've spent hours and hours and months and years cultivating these relationships. As a coach, I give my clients starter lists that
Yeah.
I've built, and I give them access to that because I say to them, hey, I want you to start your campaign off on the right foot. So
Mm.
here's lifetime access to the recorded calls where we brainstormed everything, all the templates, tools, resources, media lists so that you can take all of this with you, even after we finish working together. And now you have the knowledge, the tools, and the resources to launch your own PR campaign. And also, I'm still here as your coach. If you need help, if you need me to help you workshop something, you can always reach back out and we can book another session and I can work with you to get you through that, to make sure that your campaign is landing the way you want it to.
Amazing. So you're really empowering people to take control of their own PR or even to teach their team, if they have a team, to do their own internal PR. Is that correct?
It's more of catering to the entrepreneur to for those that want to DIY it. It's really
Yeah.
focusing on that. And it's also giving them the education and the knowledge and the confidence to learn how to better advocate for their goals when they actually do go to work with a PR agency. And on
Yeah.
top of that, have that knowledge and that education to know how do I find the right people to work with. Now that they
Yeah.
have that toolbox with them, they now know it's like, okay, these are the questions I need to ask to even determine is this practitioner the best person I want to work. It's not
Yeah.
about teaching my clients to be their own publicist. It's more of giving them that toolbox so that if you want to launch one, you can. But even if you went to go work with another agency or another publicity team, you have the confidence to stand up and advocate for your goals and the direction you want the campaign to take. And you have the knowledge that's going to help you find the right people that you want to work with as well.
Mm. Interesting. Now, You've also written a book. Let's talk about that. Can you share with me what kind of sparked your idea to put your experience and your expertise into words, into a book?
Sure. Yeah. The Powerful Publicity Prescription is my first nonfiction business book. It's just won its fourth award, actually. Yeah.
Amazing.
Thank you. I
Congratulations.
appreciate that. And I was inspired to write it because I had quite a few entrepreneurs and authors in my audience asking me, do you have a book? Would you write a book? Because following you on social media is fantastic. It's really helpful. However, I don't have a resource that I can flip through or refer back to that's actually going to remind me of some of the things that you've covered, let's say weeks or months before. So, in that spirit, I started doing some research and I realized that in my industry, so many of the books are either geared towards students who want to become publicists, or they are geared towards publicists that are already in corporate or in government to do better. And what I thought was so much of this industry, like the big name agencies, a lot of the tools out there, all of these things are catered to enterprise level companies. The entrepreneur has every right to book interviews as well. That entrepreneur has every right to stand up on stage and give a keynote address just the same as the CEO of a Fortune 500 company. So I thought this book that I'm going to write is going to be geared towards your creative entrepreneurs, your women in business, your coaches, your nonprofits, your startups, all these folks that everybody else is leaving behind. So when I built the framework for it, I really wanted to focus on how am I going to demystify the world of public relations in ways that no one else is talking about. So what I did was I started off with the history of PR and why it's different from advertising, social media, and email. And then I went into these are some of the most popular PR myths that people believe. And they believe in all of these because of their underlying subconscious limiting beliefs. So here's how to recognize what fear looks like when it comes to PR.
Mm.
What does frustration manifest into? What does anxiety manifest into? What does self sabotage look like? Comparison syndrome, imposter syndrome, all of these different things. And I talk about how to push past them using affirmations and mantras and tools and resources that I give my clients and I also use myself on a regular basis. So I really dive into that before getting into the actual tangible deliverables, if you will, for a PR campaign. So what's a media kit? Why do you need one? How to build one? How to pitch. I give the framework on developing a media pitch, and I even get into things like how to pitch a magazine versus a podcast versus a
Because they're
YouTube show.
different.
I have a
Mm.
section inspired by a series of blog posts before where journalists actually shared this is a bad PR pitch. I put that in the book and
Mm.
said, these are the things to avoid if you don't want your pitch to end up in the recycle bin. And I even talk about how to build a media contact database, how to find the right media outlets to get in front of. And then we get into interviews, how to share
Yeah.
your story within interviews. What are some of the common questions that you should practice and prepare for? And how to deal with difficult questions if you're asked them. And then I finish everything up with, okay, now you are getting that media coverage. You're booking these events. Let's talk about how you're going to promote them properly so it'll always keep your projects top of mind with your chosen audiences.
Amazing. And I love that you specified just at the beginning of that little conversation that you did your research about what was already on the market and then created your book to fill a hole in the market, which is one of the reasons why your book has been as successful as it has. I'm curious to know, in your opinion, what has publishing your book done for your business?
It's still early days, and I published my book with the express purpose of having it be a part of my business, to incorporate it as a lead generator and everything. I think what it's done for me so far is that it's allowed me to have a touch point that people can get to know me on. They can learn more about me and how I work and my client success stories, maybe without necessarily talking to me. Whereas before, if they wanted that touch point, they had to come directly to me. So I look at my book as a touch point that will allow them to walk into my universe and how I approach PR and how I approach mindset. And I'm really using it as an educational lead generator so that people can read the book and decide to take action on developing a PR campaign. And by the time they book a call with me, they already have an idea of this is what it's about. This is what I want to do with it. Can you help me get from point A to point B? What it's also
Yeah.
been fantastic is based on the amazing industry leaders and book coaches and publishers and all of these fantastic people in different industries that have blurbed my book and reviewed it themselves, it's also given them a much stronger foundation from which to make referrals because now they
Yeah.
understand how I work and what I do and how it's different from your typical agency model.
Yeah, I love that. And only more successes to come for you, I can see. So let's jump back into these limiting beliefs because they're different from your fears. They're worded differently, I suppose. So, what are some common limiting beliefs that you see people front with?
Going back to the piece of like believe why they buy into PR myths, right? A really big one I hear from entrepreneurs all the time is PR is never going to work for me because I'm not a celebrity and I don't have 30 or $40,000 to throw down on a campaign
Mm,
because popular culture and mainstream news teaches us that's the only way it can work. And a lot of that comes from the imposter syndrome. A lot of that comes from feeling like a fraud. A lot of that comes from the fact that they've never been, at least for women, given an opportunity to share their voices without having to shell out a lot of money, or they don't see women such as themselves being featured on platforms if they didn't already have that reputation, if they weren't already a celebrity. So a lot of that comes into societal conditioning, family conditioning, all of these different things that kind of play into this is never going to work for me because I'm not worthy of it, or I don't know what I'm doing, or I'm not an expert. Imposter syndrome is really big because when you see a celebrity do an interview, they're usually more polished. They have the money to fly in all of the folks to help them select their wardrobe and do this and do that. And so many entrepreneurs are like, I don't have it in me to look perfect. I'm not perfect. I'm not an expert. This is not the arena for me because who wants to hear from me anyway? This is the arena for the Fortune 500 companies, the celebrities, the major influencers, the bestsellers. That's not me. So a lot of that anxiety causes them to self sabotage. Like, even though they may have that goal, they keep thinking that they can't work towards it because it's already a foregone conclusion that whatever they do, that outcome's going to be negative. So when I work
mm,
with my clients on the mindset piece, I say to them, here's the thing. Night before your first interview, all of these anxieties and these fears that you have about this turning out negative, none of that is set in stone. Why? Because it hasn't happened yet. So it's
mm.
really about changing their perspective to be like, if you're so worried about that negative outcome happening, fact of the matter is that a positive outcome is just as likely because you've never done this before. And then, of course, there's a whole heap of anxiety surrounding what if I screw up? What if I forget what I'm going to say? What if I embarrass myself? And that's when I say to them to manifest that positive outcome, this is why we prepare and this is why we practice. So, media
Yeah.
training is part of what I do as a coach as well to make sure that my clients are comfortable with getting in front of the camera, with sharing their stories, with building these relationships. And sometimes that narrative that we see in the mainstream can work against someone's mindset. Then it becomes a little bit more ego driven. I've lost count of over how many years now I've heard people say to me, I've never done an interview in my life, but I want on the Tonight Show. Can you do that? And I say to
Yep.
them, here's the thing. I appreciate that you have such a big goal, but the fact of the matter is there's a couple things to consider. A, just because mainstream media reaches thousands of households doesn't mean that their audience is your audience.
That's that ego thing. If your audience isn't consuming that media, what's the point?
Exactly, exactly. The other thing that they don't consider as well is if you don't have that media experience, what you're banking on when no one's heard of you, you're an unknown, is for something to go viral. Make a football reference, throwing a Hail Mary pass and hoping it's going to land in the end zone in order to get you that media opportunity. But if you've never done an interview before, the last thing I want for my clients is to be on that couch or on that stage. They ask you a question that either you can't answer or you won't answer. The kind of damage that could do to your reputation when you don't have that foundation of experience to back it up might not be something you recover from as a business. I
Yeah.
always say to them that mainstream, in spite of what we've all been taught for generations, is not the top of the mountain. Not anymore.
Yep. I love that distinction. So interesting. So I'm wondering, can you give us like a concrete example of one of your past clients that they've landed some pretty great media opportunities for their audience, because that's key, without spending a lot of money on a PR campaign, because it is possible that you don't have to sink tens of thousands of dollars into a PR campaign in order to get good exposure?
I worked with a phenomenal client. She is an award-winning cyberpunk sci-fi fiction author. So when we started working together, one of the things that I noticed about her was her willingness to stand and own her own story. Her standpoint was, this is me, this is my experience. I'm not going to apologize for it. And if somebody asks about something in my books, I'm going to be straight with them about it. And at the time, we were working to help her launch a campaign for the first book of her series. It was about a cyberpunk sci-fi detective who happened to be sober. So I thought that part was interesting. And I said, we have an opportunity here to talk about not just the genre of your book or the characters, but about that as a theme specifically. Like, why is that important? So we built a campaign around her sharing her story as a sober creative. She was not afraid to stand in her truth and say on a podcast about creativity and talking about her books that, hey, I am recovering from alcoholism, she said. And she said, I made the choice to put characters in my books, like in my female protagonists, keep them sober. A, because it's important to me. I know it's important to my readers out there to see sobriety represented in a positive way as a form of strength. And she said, I wanted to flip the genre on its head. She loves hard-boiled detective novels. And she said, I wanted to get away from that chain smoking, chain drinking detective in order to show people that, hey, you can do this line of work the same way you can be a writer and not have to end up developing a dependency on this substance that's supposed to drive your creativity or be a coping mechanism for you to do your job. She really owned up to that, and I'm really proud of her for it, because she, with the media opportunities we got, blew the doors off for a lot of people out there that are reviewing sci-fi books, supporting sci-fi indie authors, because they said, this is not something we see. And she said, that's exactly my point. I wrote these books with a focus on that because we need to see more of that. We should see more of that. And there shouldn't be this stigma about saying, A, I'm a recovering addict, and B, there's no shame in turning down a drink.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's amazing. I love fresh perspectives and people who are courageous enough because honestly, PR does take courage, which is why obviously so much of your work is focused on mindset. If you could give one core message or lesson about PR that you believe is essential for every entrepreneur to know, what would it be?
I would say that if this is a world you're looking to step into, to do something different with your marketing strategy, always be cognizant of the fact that PR is a long term business growth strategy. It is not an
Yeah.
overnight success. It's not about instant gratification. It's about how can you build longevity and growth into your business in a sustainable and consistent way. As an example, I will never, ever say to my clients, you have to book X amount of interviews in a month in order for it to be viable. What I say to them
Mm,
is look to your energy levels, prioritize your schedule, prioritize your health, and really seriously look at it and go, where is my comfort level? How many
yeah.
interviews, how many events, how many of these things that I could realistically do on a monthly basis to continue to keep my projects top of mind and also conserve my energy. That to me
Mm,
is the key to that long-term growth and to that longevity is really figuring out that for you as an individual entrepreneur and for your business, what does that look like consistently and sustainably for you to build that longevity for your business?
I think that's so important. And to also dispel the myth that, oh, yeah, I'll just do this one pitch and then I'll be on Channel 7 or Good Morning America. It just doesn't happen like that. Media and PR is a long term game that involves creating relationships.
Absolutely. And it's on the strength of those relationships that you continue to find opportunities, that you can continue
Correct.
to nurture those relationships that you've also built with their audiences as well.
Yeah.
Because as we both know in today's landscape, audiences need to see something about 20 times before A, they commit it to memory, and B, they decide to do something about it. So if
Yeah.
they're not out there getting those opportunities and promoting them the right way so that you are reaching your audiences when they're reading things, when they're watching things, when they're listening to things, then you are missing these opportunities for them to get to know you because people won't support what they don't know about.
Yeah, exactly. Lillian, we've had some amazing insights into PR and mindset and the world of entrepreneurship on our chat today. But before we wrap up, we have a tradition on the podcast called the book drop. And we want to know what book has impacted you either on a personal level or a business level that you can recommend to us.
If you haven't read it yet, I highly recommend Rachel Rogers's We Should All Be Millionaires.
Oh, I love that book.
It
Yes.
changes your mindset surrounding not just money, but how so many of us women have settled in life when
Hmm.
it comes to our careers, when it comes to our businesses, when it comes to making allowances for our relationships, friends, family, spouses, whatever, what have you. And it's really a fantastic eye opener when it comes to looking at how you approach things like financial stress and debt in different ways, investments, all of these different things. And I was actually recommended to read it by my sister, who said, I think this will really change how you see money in your business and how you see
Yeah.
strategic investments and growth and everything else. And it really has, honestly.
I couldn't agree with you more. It is a fantastic book and I recommend it as well. So, if you are listening to this episode and you want to go and hang out with Lillian and soak up all of that amazing information that she has to share with you and co create on an amazing PR future for yourself, I will pop all of her links in the show notes. Lillian, thank you for your sharing your wisdom today.
Thank you so much for having me, Taryn. Anytime any of your listeners have questions or you'd want to chat again about just this fascinating world we both live in, I would love to.
Absolutely. Sounds amazing.
That's a wrap on today's episode. If you love the insights and inspiration, don't let it end here. Hit subscribe to stay connected and turn your visions into reality alongside our community of changemakers. I'm Tarryn Reeves. Thank you for joining me. And remember, your story has power. See you in the next episode.